It kind of helps me out a little bit. Give me a moment. I want to get my technology going. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. It's good to see so many out today. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm blessed to have an opportunity to speak to you all this morning and hopefully bring a lesson that will be beneficial. I would also like to welcome our visitors. I've got to meet some of you, but if I failed to meet you, please know that you're very welcome here. We're happy you chose to worship with us and be with our family today. I do feel compelled to tell you that I'm not the regular full-time evangelist here. That's Dempsey Collins, and he's out of town for a gospel meeting today. So I'd encourage you to come back some other time. If you come next Sunday, you would actually hear my brother Adam, who's been leading singing. He's preaching next Sunday. I know that'll be outstanding. But I hope you'll come back some other opportunity. And again, thank you for being here. If you would, please, let's turn in your Bibles to Galatians in chapter 5. Galatians 5, and I want to read verse 13. Galatians 5:13 reads, "For you were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love, serve one another." And that verse to me is, in the way it's written, is broken into kind of three different parts. And so I like to look at those quickly. The first part, "For you were called to freedom, brothers," is referring to the freedom that we have because of the sacrifice of Jesus, a freedom from sin, the freedom from that bondage. But we're taught in the second line kind of how not to use that freedom, or rather how not to abuse it. It says, "Do not use your freedom as opportunity for the flesh." The NIV reads, "Do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh." If you want to really boil it down and get very simple language, you can look at a translation like the CEV, the Common English Version, which I like to look at from time to time. It just says, don't use your freedom to do anything you want. It really puts it pretty simple. And so I look at that, there's a lot of lessons you can take from that. But when I read that, I think just because I've been saved by Jesus, by his sacrifice, doesn't mean that I should stop striving to please God. So what should I do instead? Well, that's the last line of that verse, which you might recognize as the theme for our family here for 2023. Through love, serve one another. And that's a fantastic sentiment. That's one we can all get behind. I don't think anybody here has a problem with that. Through love, serve one another. That's great. But doing that, really committing to that, probably is going to require that at some points, you may have to do something you don't really want to do. You may have to do something that maybe you're not comfortable doing. And that doesn't mean that we don't want to serve each other. It doesn't mean certainly that we don't love each other. But to really put that into action, to really show that, you're probably going to have to do some things that you don't want to do from time to time. Another way of saying that is you may have to get out of your comfort zone. So again, I appreciate Adam's song choice because it goes along with my lesson pretty well. My lesson today is about comfort zones. We've all got them. I mentioned to a brother a few weeks ago, I was going to preach on comfort zones, and he's like, "Ooh, you're going to step on some toes." And I assure you that that's not my intention. In fact, the areas that I'm going to focus on this morning, that the reason they came to mind for me is because these are issues that I've dealt with. They're comfort zones that I had in the past that held me back and still do. But I just want to focus on two areas where getting stuck in our comfort zone can inhibit us from serving each other, from serving the Lord. And I hope that by focusing on these, we can all be encouraged, perhaps challenged, to break out of those a little bit. Break out of those so that we can serve better. So the first area I want to think about and talk to you about is in the area of service/works. In our works. So we can't talk about works without going to the book of James. So if you would please turn to James with me. Chapter 1. James 1, beginning in verse 22. And we're going to read a handful of verses in James. James 1:22 reads, "Be doers of the word and not hearers only." It's great to hear the word. It's great to take it in. It's great to believe it. We must be doers of the word also. We have to do what it says. Flip over to chapter 2 in verse 14. It says, "What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works?" On down verse 21 through 22. "Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? You see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works." And then lastly, verse 26, also in chapter 2. "For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead." These scriptures are abundantly clear. They make very clear the importance of works as part of our Christian faith, as part of our walk. Even using the term "our Christian walk" implies action, implies work being done. And I think we all agree on that. We all know and understand the importance of works. That's not what this lesson is about. But comfort zones can get in the way of our works. They just can, they do. And so I guess for a second, when I talk about comfort zones, I think you know what I mean, but just a euphemism for the idea that there's something over here I kind of know I should do or think I should do, but to step over here and do it, I don't like the way that feels. I'd rather stay here where I'm safe, where I'm comfortable. You might say where it's easier. That's what a comfort zone is. I don't want to step out of it. I like where I am. In many ways, staying in our comfort zone, if I want to be a little harsh about it, it could be described as simply what's doing easier. And I'll just give a few examples that I just want us to think about. And again, these came to my mind because this is me. But volunteering to be part of the service might be a comfort zone challenge for you. Leading prayer, Lord's Supper, Wednesday night talk, etc. Teaching classes certainly could be a comfort zone challenge for some of us. What about greeting visitors? That may seem like a small thing, but that can definitely be a challenge. Walking up and talking to someone you never met before, for many is uncomfortable. That's a comfort zone challenge. Getting to know new members, maybe inviting them to your home, inviting them to lunch. These are all very understandable things that a lot of us are uncomfortable doing. And so we are challenged by that. It's out of my comfort zone to do X, Y, Z. But the problem with, if you think about these examples specifically, if I fail to do them, then whether I know it or not, I'm making the assumption that someone else will do it. Okay, so if I don't want to lead a prayer, if I don't want to teach a class, that's understandable, but you're making the assumption, well, someone else will take care of that. And in the case of those examples, it'll happen. We'll find somebody to do it. Absolutely. But what about greeting a visitor? What if the people that normally kind of would do that kind of thing aren't here that day? Or maybe they're having a bad day that day. And so because I didn't do it and because they weren't here to do it like they normally would, nobody spoke to our visitors. And listen, I don't think that happens here very often, if at all. But I think we can all agree we don't want that to happen. That person may never come back in here. Getting to know our new members is kind of the same way. That's really, really important. But it's the same challenge of, well, I know they placed membership here, but I haven't talked to them yet, so they're still kind of strangers and I'm uncomfortable. But we have to do that. Because what if 6 months later, all of a sudden they're not here anymore and we're looking at each other wondering what happened? We have to bring them into our family. We have to be the ones. We can't expect them to step out of their comfort zone. We have to do that. It's really, really important. I'm talking about souls. I know none of us here want that to happen, but it can. It could happen if we don't challenge ourselves in that way. What about evangelism? Not just spreading the word of Jesus, talking to people. I thought about borrowing one of Missy's little hand mirrors and just holding it up when I got to this one. Not to you all, to myself. That's a challenge for me. That's a comfort zone issue for me. I'm better about it than I used to be. But evangelism is one of the most important, if not the most important work that we as Christians can do. But I would argue it's probably one of the biggest comfort zone challengers that there is also. It can be uncomfortable to do that. It can be hard to do that. We have to challenge ourselves to do it. And again, it's not easy, but it's the same exact problem as the other examples I gave, which is if I don't do it, if I see an opportunity to spread the word of Jesus, to talk to somebody about Jesus, and because it makes me nervous, uncomfortable, I don't do it. Well, I guess I'm hoping somebody else is going to do it. I guess I can pray that somebody else does it. But what if they don't? And so as we think about your comfort zone challenges in regards to service and works, you may be thinking of one right now. I understand that that's normal. I understand that, doing certain things can make you nervous. I understand these challenges. So you might be nervous about leading a prayer or teaching a class. You might be nervous about spreading the gospel. It's totally understandable. But one thing that I would just ask you to remember is that when we're doing works for the Lord, He's with us. And so if you step out of that comfort zone to do one of these things, the Lord will be with you when you're doing that. He will strengthen you. He will give you the ability you don't think you have. I promise you that's true. And He will be well pleased with your actions. Second area I want to think about is fellowship. Pretty broad category. Fellowship takes on many different forms, and we have lots of opportunities to have fellowship with each other. If we think about the building, just what we do here, we have 52 Sundays where we have class and worship and a Spanish service, 52 Wednesdays. If we have 3 gospel meetings in a year and say 6 sessions, that's 18 more opportunities. 5 fifth Sunday prayer/song services, that's 5 more. Maybe a couple singings, maybe a congregational meeting. That's about 130 opportunities in a year to fellowship with your brothers and sisters. That's just here at the building. And I'm not saying that I expect you to be here for all 130. I won't be. I just want you to think about, though, all those opportunities that we have just here. So then you add on top of that all the opportunities away from the building. We have potlucks. Some people have pitch-ins. I don't have those at my house. We have potlucks. That would be more funny if Dempsey and Dean were here today. But we have potlucks and those types of gatherings. We have Bible studies. We have work group meetings. We have the opportunity to visit other congregations. We can invite people into our homes. We can invite people to lunch. And perhaps more importantly, we can accept those invitations when they're extended to us. Maybe you're not comfortable having people in your home. That's okay. Maybe you think your house is too small. Maybe you live in an apartment, whatever. That's okay. But if you get an invitation like that, accept it. That's just as important, in my opinion. So we have lots of opportunities. And I think that this congregation, this family, is really, really good about presenting those opportunities. They're there. There are lots of opportunities. People open their homes, people having Bible studies, so on and so forth. We're good about presenting them. How good are we at taking advantage of them? That's what we have to think about. And I confess, I used to be bad about this. When I first met Missy, I've never met anybody that went to church 3 times a week, first of all, so we can start there. That was a little strange to me, but that was a long time ago. But even after having known her for a long time and getting married and getting baptized, I still was kind of a Sunday, Wednesday guy for a while. And that was my comfort zone. I thought that was good enough. I didn't think I should have to do more than that. And to me, going to somebody's house and sitting in their living room and singing was weird. So it was out of my comfort zone. Another way of saying that, though, is it was just easier to stay home. But the problem is that I wasn't thinking about it in the right way. I think perhaps I was thinking of what's expected. What do I need to do? What do I have to do? Well, I guess I have to go on Sunday and Wednesday. But I wasn't thinking about the why. Why? Why should we do this? So we talk about works, we go to James. We talk about fellowship, we go to Hebrews. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 10, please. Many of you will know where I'm going. Let's look at verse 25, Hebrews 10:25. So different translations have this obviously written differently, but ESV says, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day draw near. Some translations say, not forsaking the assembly. Many of us know this verse very well. This is the you better come to church verse, right? And I agree that's what it is saying. But the why, to me, is more important. And the why is in verse 25, but it's also in 24. So if we read it again, but start at 24 this time, Hebrews 10:24, and let us consider how to stir up one another to good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day draw near. See, I believe the Lord wants us to be together as much as possible because we make each other better. That's what happens. We make each other better. Iron sharpens iron. You know, I got out of the Sunday, Wednesday comfort zone when I realized that I'm the best version of myself when I'm with you. Period. And the more I can be with you, the more I can be that better version, the more I can be that best version. And hopefully the more I'm with you, the more I can be that version all the time. That doesn't mean I'm terrible when I'm not with you, but I'm a better version of myself when I'm with my brothers and sisters, not just here in the building, anywhere. Anywhere. And I believe that's what God wants for us. We know that. Bear each other's burdens, build each other up, edify each other, stir up one another to good works. That is what happens when we're together. Every time. 3 people were 300. So I'll challenge you to think about that time the next time. Maybe it's a gospel meeting and you went to all 3 on Sunday, you went on Monday, and now it's Tuesday and you're tired. It's okay to stay home if you're tired, but think about that. If you go ahead and go, you'll be better for it. You'll make your brethren better. Above all, you'll please the Lord. Through love, serve one another. When I read that, I think of a couple other scriptures, and you don't need to turn here with me, you know them. But Matthew 22:38, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Philippians 2:3, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility, count others more significant than you count yourselves. Love, humility. Sometimes breaking out of a comfort zone does mean facing a real fear and anxiety. I understand that. But oftentimes it just requires putting the needs of others above your own. That's what it boils down to a lot of times. If you think about it, you never know, or we often never know, the impact that our actions are having on others. We often never know the impact our lack of action may have on others. And so I may never know that if I choose to stay home from a work group meeting, I may have been an encouragement to somebody by being there. I may never realize that because I chose to stay home, I was in fact a discouragement to someone. I may never know that if I choose to pass on teaching a kids class, There was a connection there that I could have made that may have changed a kid's life for the better, and certainly would have changed mine. Breaking out of your comfort zone in order to serve others and serve the Lord requires courage, but I believe it also requires love and humility. So I challenge myself, again, if I haven't made it clear enough, this isn't about you, it's about me too. I challenge myself and you to just choose one. You might be thinking of one. Choose one area of your service, of your works, of your fellowship, where you know your comfort zone is holding you back. You know it. Choose one and break out of it. It could be something small to you, but it'll be big to somebody else. There's no better example of someone leaving their comfort zone for the benefit of others, of course, than Jesus and the apostles for that matter. Jesus left heaven for us. The apostles left their lives behind for him. And together they faced numerous situations that were uncomfortable, to say the least. They left their comfort zone behind for him. He left his behind for us. And so today, maybe your comfort zone is keeping you from accepting Jesus into your life. Maybe you've thought about getting baptized. Maybe you want to get baptized, but you can't break out of that, and you won't force yourself to do it. Maybe you thought about coming forward. Maybe you need the prayers of the congregation. Maybe you need to be forgiven. Maybe you need to forgive, but you're holding yourself back from doing it. Please break out of that comfort zone today. That's the most important one you can break out of. And it's the most important decision you can make in your life. And I promise you, you will not regret it. The Lord stands willing to receive you. We stand willing and ready to support you. But if you would like to respond to the invitation today, please come forward while we sing the song Adam selected.